All right, sorry about that. I had a phone call. Um, anyway, as we're looking into this passage, I forgot to have you first question them. What are the leadership positions in the church? And that's obviously what we've been talking about: pastors, elders, and deacons, or overseers, elders, and deacons. But now, after we've done that and we've looked through the concordance, we go on to these other questions. It says, what are the qualifications for overseer and elder? I think it would be great if you could actually, as they give them to you, write them up on the board, because there's just something about looking at them. And I just want to give a little bit of commentary over some of this stuff. It says, if anyone aspires to the office of overseer, he desires a noble task. A lot of times in the church, we think that just because somebody wants to do a job and that maybe they aren't the most qualified to do that job, that there has to be this, um, you know, reluctance because, and then God has to urge them on past it, because you hear that a lot. You hear about God calling somebody and them not really wanting to do it, and eventually they surrender. But here, I think this passage indicates um, that God could put a desire in the heart of a person um, to actually be a pastor, to be a deacon, those kind of things. Now, I don't think it's something that they should scratch and claw and fight for and things like that, because if God's truly put that in them, then the church as a whole is going to see those qualities in that person and confirm the call on their life as well. So there's an inward call that a person has to ministry, and then there is an outward call that the church as a whole can affirm that person in ministry. So so it is possible for them to aspire. So it says an overseer must be above reproach. I look at that as a general statement, and then he goes on and explains what that means. A husband of one wife. There's definitely some discussion that can happen there on whether that is the husband, whether it's talking about polygamy or whether it's talking about um, um, that they should not be involved in polygamy, or whether it's you know just one wife at a time, or they can only have one wife ever. My personal thought on that is that um, it's not an issue that big enough to cause division over. But at the same time, whenever death happens in a marriage, whenever the death of a spouse happens in a marriage, that breaks the covenant. So then, if somebody loses a spouse due to death, they could they could then remarry. But again, I'm not. You may disagree with me on that, and it's not a point of contention big enough worth causing division in the church. I believe our stance. There has been a stance in the past here that, um, given, for instance, if a deacon loses his wife due to death, and then he decides to remarry, I believe there's been some that have turned in their ordination certificate because they did not want to dishonor the church due to this passage of Scripture. They felt like that they could not remarry and still remain a deacon. That was I don't think that was a forced on thing. I think they chose to do that. So I think that's honorable and noble because they didn't want to cause division in the church. But but at any rate, um, he needs to be the husband of one wife, sober minded, self controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, um, not a drunkard, not violent, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. He must manage his own household well. As the pastors were gone to the conference this last week, it was over manhood and being good fathers, and they talked about the correlation of being able to manage your home and then also being able to manage a church. Because as a good father, you are not only one that oversees your family, you serve them, you do several key facets of being a father that also make that are really good facets to have, or character qualities to have as an overseer in the church. And so that's a direct correlation one to another. If you are able to do that in your home, and not saying that you're never going to have difficulties, because a lot of times in the life of a pastor or a deacon, Satan will will attack the family because he knows that it's one of the easiest ways to get to the pastor or deacon. And so I'm not saying there's never anything going on in your home that would cause you to say, my goodness, what's going on here? I'm just saying that somebody's got to be able to manage that, because in a church, as we all know, there are a lot of issues that come up that have to be dealt with, just like they are in your home. And so if somebody is not able to manage those things in a home, how are then they going to be able to manage those things in a church? And so I would love for you all to go over characteristic by characteristic. And I don't want you to look at, me or Brother Spencer or David or Dan or anybody and just say, all right, now, which one of these do they have? And which one of these do they have? Like, that's not the point, because everybody has imperfections and everybody has weaknesses. It's just that they should understand that these are the qualifications. And one of the things that I really like in this is in verse 6. It says, he must not be a recent convert, or he may become puffed up with conceit and fall into condemnation of the devil. In that particular, like, there are a lot of people that get saved and then feel like they're called into ministry, and then they need to go and, do these great things, in which, I don't have any problem with if God has called somebody to ministry. But there also needs to be a time of preparation for them to make sure that they don't get puffed up with pride, because pride is a real danger for someone in the church. Because if you have somebody looking to you all the time for guidance and wisdom and all of these things, and you begin to drink that in, then you become prideful, and you become exactly the opposite of what you need to be in those moments. And so so just work through each one of these character qualities that or the qualifications for an overseer or an elder. And then I want you to do the same thing with the deacon and see how they are supposed to be. Again, reminding students that there are times whenever people get ordained that maybe they shouldn't be. And understanding that no one is perfect, so we should not look down on those people, but pray for them, because they have a position of leadership in the church, and they need prayer, because constantly is Satan going after them to try to cause them to fall. Let's take a break for just a moment.